Yesterday, students began working on coil pottery, modeled after this ancient Chinese pottery. All of their work from yesterday will be on this shelf towards the bottom in labeled bags. For extra clay today, look inside of this bucket and take a small handful to use as needed. When you get clay from this bucket, it should feel fresh, like the block you got yesterday. If it feels a little dry or tough to use, don't use it. Take any dry or tough pieces out of this bin and place them in the white bin I left out on the table. All right. So we worked on this yesterday. If you had something to save and we put it in the bag, we take that out. There's a chance you may have made something yesterday and it's just not worth saving. I noticed, like, for some of my students, they made things that were like really, really thin. They start to crack, they start to fall apart. If it's not worth saving, then don't save it. Get a fresh piece of clay today, start anew. If you want to make something smaller than this and make like 3 or 4 that are, let's say, like this big instead, or a little bit smaller, you can make more than one if they're a little bit smaller. So you get that like practice and reps. I built mine up this many levels so far, about 7 or 8 levels of coils. And on the inside, I'm really focusing on like every 2 or 3 coils that I put down, I'll brace it like this, and then start to smooth it with the side of my fingers and my thumb, trying to get that interior smoother, because once you build up, it gets harder and harder to reach down inside. As I'm doing this, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get too thin. So I notice for a lot of students when I do this starts happening. A lot of pinching and pulling. If you start doing this, what you're doing is you're making a pinch pot. And this is gonna get thinner and thinner and thinner and more fragile. It won't be able to support any weight if it gets like thin like a piece of paper. It'll also start to dry out and crack much faster if it gets too thin. If that happens, like I said, it might not be worth saving. You might just go like this, off to the side. Not everything you make today and tomorrow has to be saved. You may only have one piece at the end, and that is fine. If you make one that's too crumbly, it falls apart, so what? Make a new one. So, same process as yesterday. Today, we're gonna go into that white and yellow bucket over there, and you're looking for, all the clay should be like a little bit like rehydrated. I sprayed it down, but make sure you're always getting a piece of clay that feels like soft, malleable clay. If you pull something out of there and it's like, feels like a rock, well, don't use that. So, same process as yesterday. Try to use more your fingers. Focus on any part that looks thick. Have your hands start together and then gradually move apart as you roll. And think as you're adding to this, you have to have some kind of like, some kind of thickness to your piece to be able to add more clay. So here's a coil, sorry. If I go to add to this, I'm gonna start over here where it's a little bit lower. You can see that. I'm gonna kind of ramp this up over here. If I want this to get a little bit tighter as it comes up and get narrow, I'm gonna focus to this next one. The coil is gonna go slightly on the inside of this one here. So it starts to get a little bit smaller and kind of closes up as it goes up the piece. So you can see the form starting to close a little bit now as I bring it up. And same thing, like every 2 or 3, I'm gonna curve my hand this way right now and just start to kind of smooth those out, join those. Another way to join them is just simply doing this. If you just kind of take the coils and sort of like lightly tap them down, it'll compress a little bit and get rid of any gaps that might be in between some of the coils. Like right here, there's a gap. If I tap that down a little tiny bit like this, it starts to kind of join it just by adding a little bit of pressure to it. So I'm going to continue building this up until it kind of closes off and gets to its full height. And then I'll show you some more tricks in the next video. At the end of class, all pottery will be wrapped up inside of a plastic bag. Try to get all the air out of it and wrap it up in plastic. Use a Sharpie to write your name onto it. And for colors, try to get the color of your table as your bag. Over here, red and pink tables, so you use the red and pinkish ones. Light blue and regular blue, use blue. Orange and white table, use a white bag. Wrap them up and put it on your shelf. Here's an example of 3AN. Any unused clay at the end of the class can be tossed back into the bucket. Don't throw it in a big ball. Try to tear it up into smaller pieces and put them in the bucket. And then you'll spray just a little bit of water on top, maybe like 20 spritzes to rehydrate the clay. Any clay that was a little drier or tougher should be placed back in this bin at the end of 3rd grade. They are the last class of the day. Once all clay is back in, spritz water over the top about 20 times and close the lid so it can rehydrate over the weekend. To wipe down the tables, throw some rags into this bucket, fill it with warm water, squeeze them out, pass them out around the room for students to wipe down tables. And 3rd grade, I need you to wipe down the clay boards. 3rd grade, when you're finished, I need these boards to be wiped down on both sides with a damp rag. And those can go back on this drying rack over here. Also, in between classes, we should wipe down each table. 3rd grade, you're the last class. I want you to put all the chairs up once everything's wiped down. And then any of the rags, just lie them flat over the edge of the table like this so they can dry for tomorrow.